The Team Supreme podcast is brought to you by the voices of Jason Schomer and Yashar Coffee and produced by Matt Sewell, who is me. I am Matt Sewell. If you got a moment, leave a comment about the podcast or give us a rating or share with your friends. Enjoy.
I'm from New Jersey. He's from Iran. It's good enough for a podcast. We're Team Supreme. For you, was it always the same teachers going up? Like, you knew like who you were going to get in the next year?
Well, like the first graders all had the same teachers.
Uh-huh.
So we had like 7 teachers that each teacher was assigned for the whole year to the same class.
Oh, okay.
Like the same teacher would teach the same group of students, and they would teach all the subjects to those group of students.
Was English one of the subjects?
And no, English used to be, I guess, I'm thinking before the Iranian Revolution, we had English in the elementary school, but I think after the revolution. I went to school right after the revolution, like a few years after.
When was the revolution?
1979.
Okay.
I mean, I was like 2 years old.
Okay.
Then, or 3. And then years later, when I went to school, it was an era where they didn't know how to like fit a foreign language in the curriculum. Like,
Before the Iranian Revolution, it was pretty secular, right?
It was extremely secular, and if I'm correct, they were teaching English in the elementary school. But then after the revolution, they said no, we won't teach them English till they're in the 6th grade or the first year of the middle school. So things.
And was English the only language that they were focused on, or
the 6th grade you had to study English and Arabic. But the Arabic they were teaching was mostly for like understanding religious studies.
Right.
So it wasn't like really a conversational type of an Arabic.
Yeah.
So then, but then there were like language classes.
Right.
That were independent from the school. So people who had, money, they would attend those.
So when it came to different teachers, I mean, like I remember by 2nd grade, we knew there was one teacher in my school that you didn't want to get. I remember her name was Miss Karen. And she's exactly what you would picture a German headmaster to be, right? She was just this massive woman, tall glasses, short blonde hair, very deep, strong voice. But the rumor that we all believed was that, and it was strange because it was a very detailed story that everyone believed, was that there was a student in her class who dropped a pen or a pencil on the floor. I think it was a pen. I remember it being a pen. Fell on the floor, and she said, "Don't pick that up." And the kid went to pick it up anyway, and she walked over to the kid, took the pen, and stabbed him with the pen. And that was an accepted story. That really happened. She really did that she took the pen, she stabbed him in the shoulder. He had to go to the nurse, obviously. And that was true. And if you get Miss Karen, you might get stabbed.
Did any of the kids have the guts to go up to Miss Karen and go, "Isn't true"?
No. No one ever asked her, not that I know of. But
I witnessed in 2nd grade a spanking in front of the class.
Really? Was this when you went to Orlando?
No, this is upstate New York. Full spanking, corporal punishment in front of the class.
Really?
Yeah. And everybody was like, that was the one and only time it ever happened. Mm-hmm. Everybody was terrified.
Oh, yeah.
The children were. And I didn't even tell my mom about it. I was like, oh, I guess that's
the
good.
teacher spanked the kid?
I was like, I guess that's...
over the knee kind of a thing?
Yeah.
Wow.
At her desk.
That would be on CNN right now.
Abso-fucking-lutely.
That would be on CNN.
Oh,
And I'll tell you, if that happened to my child, that would be a big, big fucking problem.
Of course. But back then it was like...
Oh, yeah. Spank our kids.
What did you do?
Straighten them out.
Why did you get spanked? That would be the
How
question.
about in Iran?
Oh yeah, I was
Corporal
actually
punishment.
gonna tell. Like, yeah, they used to we had the dean of the school, the teachers, and the principal used to just show up and beat up the kids. Not with punches and all, but slapping them around and then one typical punishment was hold your hand up, and then they would make you fold your hand, and then with a ruler they would hit you.
Oh, that was that's
Catholic school.
That's Catholic school stuff,
Yeah.
right there.
The nuns beat the hell out of my mother when she was in school.
Really?
Yeah.
But then slowly but surely, when I was in high school, there was this one religious studies teacher who used to like really beat up the kids, like not with punches, no, but slapping them really hard. He was much bigger than all the rest of us. So we talked to this one idiot. I mean, he's a nice kid, but he was like not too bright, and he was a wrestler. And we told him, you know, if he beats us up, then we're a bunch of pussies. But if he puts his hand on you, then that's the end of like story. Like
That's it.
That cannot take place. And so we sort of encouraged him. And then one day he laughed really out loud, and the teacher showed up to like punish him and slap him. And he did like a hip throw and took him down and headbutted him.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was that day we were like, nice. He got what he deserved, and this guy got expelled from all high schools of that region.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was no physical things like that. It was all for me. It was psychological warfare.
I think the mob lived in your town, right? They would.
Oh yeah, no, it's true. That is true. Definitely a lot of
There'd be-
mafia. Right
there'd be a
My
problem.
town had a big Italian population and Korean population. Those were the two big sides.
Like, I think I remember at some point having a conversation with you where,
yeah,
like, The Sopranos
a
was
lot of
pretty,
it
was
a
in
lot
the,
of it was filmed in my hometown.
was in the zip code.
Yeah.
What was it? Fort
Lee.
Fort Lee, yeah.
This is right. So Fort Lee. It was Englewood Cliffs. All the nice.
So you're on the river. You're right across
right across from. I saw the George Washington Bridge was right outside my window, right outside the next to the high school.
Mm-hmm.
Our mascot. We were the bridgemen, which was the lamest. The bridgemen, our mascot's a bridge. We had a lot of threats from our teacher. It wasn't physical threats. It was all like future threats, like a lot of permanent record stuff. This is gonna, you're not, you know. I mean, we weren't thinking as far ahead as college and grade school, but it just made it seem like our future was in jeopardy if we took things to like that, like any kind of discipline was going to affect our future.
Well, when I went to high school, the biggest sort of like deterrence was, we had to take this this test to get admitted to universities, and there were like two levels of universities, like public that were like the top good schools, and then private ones that also required a test.
But
Like,
they
you
weren't the
couldn't
top
just-
good ones, the private schools?
No, not
That's
really.
fascinating,
The public
'cause here-
ones, yeah.
It'd be the other way around.
It's the other way around. Although public
Exactly.
universities here are outstanding, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean,
But
it's
then
really-
the main deterrence was they were telling us like, hey, you know, if you're not studying, if you're just like jerking off and fucking around, you're not gonna get into school. Then you are obligated to do your military service. Can you do that?
Oh, so it was one or the other.
Yeah,
It was you either
yeah.
good enough to go.
Either go to school.
on to
If you
school.
can't, they'll give you another year to prepare for the university exams, the entrance exam.
Mm-hmm.
If you are failing again, military service.
Now was that
And it was 2 years.
was
back then.
that so? Did you get out of that? Did you have to do the military service?
Well, in my case, I got admitted by school. It was a private school. And then I also got admitted by this engineering school in Turkey, which was a very reputable school, but it was in Turkey. But for me to be able to go there, I had to do my military service. But then they said, like, if you wait a year, they'll let you, like, they give you a permission, and it didn't happen, so I had to do my military service.
It's interesting. I feel like there's a lot of countries that have that required military service. If you don't, like Israel does that. Like
Oh,
you
yeah?
have to be
Yeah.
in the army for a certain amount
I
of
think
years.
Israel is 3 years.
Yeah. That's-
For us, it was 2 years.
it ain't happening here.
Was there any? No, not yet.
People are.
Was there any kind of special education programs that you knew of that were in your? Or was that part of your school that you went up in, or was that separated?
It was a separate school. So
Yeah.
there was a school that just sort of like provided classes and programs
Right.
for kids that were having like learning disabilities, or they were in the category of special kids.
Right. We had in our elementary school, and looking back now, it's kind of strange. We had a special education class that wasn't just for for kids that were falling behind or didn't have skills. They were there too, but they also had brought in. And it wasn't that it was always there. It was like middle. I remember it was like the middle of my like first or second grade, where all of a sudden there was this new class there, and there were a lot of Down syndrome kids and kids that had Tourette's. They all these different spectrum of problems or disabilities, but they never told us about it. They never said, "Hey,
by the way,
this is going to happen." They just were there all of a sudden, and I remember the first day that I didn't even know that this class was happening, and I'll never forget it. I went to the bathroom, and I went into the bathroom into the stall, and there was one of the stalls was unlocked, and I opened up the stall, and there was this 300-pound buck naked Down syndrome kid.
Oh no.
Going to the bathroom on the toilet. I could remember it as clear as day. And I remember it specifically because, I don't know how old, because it wasn't like, oh, these are first grade kids. These were of all ages. This was just where the class was going to be. And I just remember this kid had a lot of pubic hair. Oh. Right. Kid, man, I don't know how old this person was. But the whole image of that, obviously, has stuck with me the rest of my life. But I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know who this person was or why. And I found out later about this class, and
that is messed up. They should have said something.
They had to say something. No, like today they would have had. You would have to start.
That would
taking,
be on CNN.
That would be on CNN.
That would be on CNN.
You would have to start taking a class to be prepared for this class that's coming in probably. But they just threw that into us.
I was told by my parents that in the recent years, corporal punishment is really discouraged. So if a teacher commits like beating or whatever, they fire the teacher.
Well, it seems like the reversal now, obviously it's unacceptable. It's flat out unacceptable in any education anywhere, including the military, in my opinion, that you would use any sort of corporal punishment. However, the recent trend I've seen on social media and stuff and getting posted is these fucking students in high school like trying to fight their teachers and like.
You haven't been watching. You didn't watch enough Maury, I don't think, or.
That shit is all fake, man. Come on.
It was all those kids.
Although I was at a Thai place the other day and Jerry Springer was on, I had to explain to my friend who had never seen it, like, what's going on with this? I'm like, you don't know about Jerry Springer?
Yeah, that's how I learned English.
On Jerry Springer?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's spectacular.
I really enjoyed it, yeah, when I was a kid. When I was like in my teenage years.
My roommate in college watched it all the time, but so you learned English from Jerry Springer.
Well, I'm joking. Like, I knew some, but I watched that a lot, so I picked up the jargons and lingo.
Did you feel that's how Americans were normally?
Well, when
Right.
This is the funny thing. I was a student in England before I came here, and my roommates and I were watching. They were from Cyprus, and we're watching, and then one of my roommates said, like, yeah, this is how they live. This is Americans and all. But then the other roommate was like, no, if they live this way, who sent that satellite to the moon, or who did Hiroshima and Nagasaki? People who thought they came up with the technology to do it.
I love that concept.
So that's how we. But I always knew that you can't have a society with everyone living like that. Even a backward, like not advanced technologically, like not developed society cannot function on people who are living that way.
Yeah.
So I had some common sense, but I enjoyed, especially I remember there was one episode where this one guy showed up and he was sleeping with this other guy's wife, and they got into a fight, and they both had cauliflower ears, and the British TV censored that fight because it was like extremely violent. So we went and rented the video of that fight and we watched it. And it was actually not that violent. The wrestler took the other guy down and headbutted him. It was like, we really enjoyed it.
That was
So Shomer, like, I don't want to derail your education podcast, but let me ask you this, being that you lived in Chicago.
Yes.
The rumor was
I also
that,
lived in Chicago.
Because Jerry Springer filmed in Chicago, the rumor was that these were various improvisers or actors around town that would, if not all of them, some of them would come in and support the premise.
I heard that from directly from people's mouths who claim to be on the show. I didn't watch the show that much, so
Yeah.
I never recognized anybody, but I definitely heard that too. That
So
people
when
would
you
come
say
in.
that, when you say that about Cauliflower Ear, obviously they went out and hired a couple of
Wrestlers.
MMA guys or
Yeah,
whatever,
right,
and
yeah.
said, "Hey, we want you guys to really
Come
get
and
into
each
it."
other up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for
You know.
sure. Speaking of, did you feel like was for sure for me? Like, I know that the transition from grade school to middle school was probably the same as going from church to being in an MMA fight. Like, that's what it was like. It became, I don't know what it was, hormones, testosterone, but there was a fight a day
Yeah.
when I was in middle school.
And looking back, like my wife, she she was teaching middle school, and I look at a middle school and I'm like, they're all little bastards. They're just all middle schoolers are assholes. Like that is an asshole part of. That's where they begin to get their self-expression, and they really start to. Their behavior can kind of go south. But I do remember that exactly because I went to Orlando in middle school, and that's the first time where a fuck ton of fights. And
Well, it
I
was
just
all
could
about-
not believe it.
That was all about I feel like in middle school that's when you found your groups, your cliques, and
Yeah.
it was so easy to go into race groups or whatever it was, and there wasn't that. My school was right across the bridge from New York, and there were a lot of these inner city kids that would establish residency in my town with an aunt or something. I don't know how they did it, but apparently it was super easy to do. And they were able to go to that school system because of their residency in that town. So, and it was ridiculous because this bus would drop them off right in front of the school, a New York, New Jersey bus, the one that would go over the bridge, and drop them off they would come off their backpacks, all the kids from the school, and to go to school, even though they didn't live in that town and everyone knew. They just couldn't do anything about it. So there were these tough kids in school, compared to us, that grew up in that town. They were and they weren't the scary ones. They became the popular. They were all the popular kids.
Yeah.
But they also were the ones, and especially in middle school, where you just had to make sure you took every step correctly, or you were gonna fight that afternoon. That was gonna happen.
Oh, wow.
And I remember that was my ongoing fear that it was going to happen. That I was going to. And I remember the slip up I made. I kind of gotten into that maybe halfway into the year without getting into a fight. I had watched so many fights that I knew it was like we were all, or especially the kids that were fighting already. They were like characters, like everyone knew their records, everyone knew how they fought, what their
who was the
style
champ?
was,
Yeah.
and then so when and it's always the dumbest thing was that I remember there was this one kid, Anthony, who was like popular, been in a million fights, something was up with him. I don't know what. I think, something back home, in family life wasn't good.
For sure.
Yeah, that leads to that a lot. It
Violence.
feels.
Yeah.
The violence. Anyway, we're all shooting basketball in PE, just throwing the balls up, and I had no idea when I walked into the gym class that he had already been there trying to hit half-court shots. Made a couple. Girls were loving it. Everybody was watching. It was his stage. I had no idea. I walked in. I took the ball. I tried a foul shot. My ball, in midair, hits his ball coming from half court, splits it. They both go in different directions. Of course, to him, that was the shot of his life that was about to happen. And he walked right up to me and goes, "What the fuck are you doing? I'm going to see you later." That was all he said. "What the fuck are you doing? I'm going to see you later." That was, it was happening. And it took less than a period of class for people to come to me going, "I hear you're fighting Tony. I hear you're fighting Anthony."
Oh, wow.
That's the worst.
Oh my God. That
pressure.
because that seals the deal. That it's happening. Like that, then you know it's an event. It's happening. The kids know who's fighting. Oh, it's Jason's first fight. It's gonna be a good one. I wonder what he's gonna be like. Yeah, my first. And sure enough, there it is. Like the immediate circle starts. You know, the circle was there when I got there.
I tell you, my heart just sinks listening to that because living it and seeing it happen, you just know there's nothing.
Nothing.
You cannot,
Especially
at that
when you've
age,
never
get out of it because
done it.
if you do, the bullying will continue.
That's worse.
forever.
That's worse than losing. You can't not fight. You have to fight, especially in middle school. And we immediately just like it took like I remember thinking, okay, here we go. And I dropped my backpack and I threw the first punch. I went right after him because I thought if I'm gonna get a couple punches in, I'm gonna get a couple punches in. And I don't even remember. It was just like a lot of flailing, grabbing, flailing, and then all of a sudden we were separated. And my best friend, Tony Toronto, who I'm very close to him to this day.
He's not a blackjack dealer.
He's not. No, he's
He
not.
doesn't run a.
Tony Toronto.
He doesn't run a some sort of brothel or something.
No.
Okay.
He.
No offense, Tony. If you're
Yeah,
listening.
no, it's for sure. It's gonna really upset him. He's gonna think. He kneels behind him. I look down and he's on all fours behind this guy Anthony, also known Tony, who is ready to go second round, and I realize he's gone down for me to push him and for him to fall over.
Oh my God.
Oh wow. What a
And
good
I
friend.
just couldn't. I could not believe he had done something like that. Like, and I was like, I remember thinking, is that fair? Could I do that? Am I allowed to have a second person come in here? He's not fighting. He's just becoming a prop. So I stepped in and I punched this kid in the face, which knocked him back, and he fell back over Tony Toronto on all fours. And I ran around Tony Toronto and repeatedly kicked this guy in the head over and over and
God,
over again
Shomer.
until blood was coming down his forehead.
Oh wow.
And that's when he stepped back and was like, I'm done. Because that's it. He saw the blood.
And this was an established fighter in school.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Yeah. And everyone, all I'm hearing around me is, Shomer won. Guess Shomer won. Shomer's the winner. Shomer won. And I'm hearing this go, and that's all I could think about. Not that I just bashed this guy's head in. Not that Tony just sacrificed his safety, what he did for me. I'm thinking, I'm 1-0.
Yeah. That's
I'm undefeated right now. This is a confirmed victory right now.
yeah, man.
Yeah, that's what had happened. And I remember thinking, man, this is going to really up my stock in the school.
How'd it work out for you?
Next
Parade of
day.
pussy?
I know. I walked in the next day.
No offense.
Write down that type code. I walked into school the next day thinking this was going to be amazing.
Best day, yeah.
And no one's coming up to me. I'm with Tony.
They're fucking scared
No
of
one's
you now.
no. Nope. I mean, that probably went across my maybe they're scared of me. No. One kid comes up to me to let me know what's happening. Heard you beat Tony yesterday. Yeah. His sister's in high school. I heard she wants to kick the shit out of you. And
Oh wow.
I hear once you get to high school, you're dead.
Well, it's funny you say that because my one and only public fight in school was I got bullied by a fucking girl. I mean,
Really?
the worst bullying I'd ever received from anyone. The way I am now was how I was in middle school. Very social and could talk my way out of a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Or talk my way into it. This girl, I didn't even know. She was just in classes and she just decided, because I was a very late bloomer, puberty very late, that I'm going to be the one to catch all of her shit. And the same shit happened. I hear you're fighting Michelle.
You had a girl bully.
A girl bully, and we fought.
What? You fought her? Physically fought
She
her?
fucking she attacked me. Like the circle happened and it was time, and I'm like,
What grade is this?
this is 7th.
Wow.
And god damn it, that happened.
So you got into a fist fight with her.
No punches land on either side. It was just hair pulling and just
I don't think I ever saw that in my school the entire time I was there. I never saw a girl-guy fight, ever.
And then, how about this? I reach out, I find her on Facebook.
You reached out to her.
No, I find her. And because she tries to add me as a friend.
Uh-huh.
Oh, wow.
And I messaged her going, you probably may or may not remember this, but you bullied the living shit out of me in 6th grade, and we got in a fight. She had no memory of it, no recollection, nothing of it. And the reason why I guess she was Facebook friends is because, you go up with the same people in middle school and high school. By high school, no one gives a fuck. It's all over and done with. But
right.
Man, that stuck with me. How about you? Was there any?
Well,
what was the bully situation over there?
Well, I learned about the concept of bullying here. Like over there, we like the conceptualizations of like bullying did not exist. Like the way it would go is there was a guy, he was like bigger than everybody else, and he would bust people around and try to pick fights. But then there were also like small gangs, but the gangs are like nothing comparable to here, like regarding the organization or having like,
But what do you mean small gangs? Say like in middle school.
Yeah, like in middle school, like there were these 5 people who were living in the same neighborhood.
Yeah.
So they were watching each other's backs. But then that would translate into like one of them trying to fight someone, knowing that these other kids are gonna jump in for him. But then the other kid also had like 4 or 5 friends. So then sometimes you would see a brawl, but then it would get broken up real fast, because this is another part of the macho culture back there is who broke the fight. Like, hey, I broke the fight. The next day, it's not who
tapped
won.
Out,
exactly.
Yeah.
Or who jumped in and didn't let them beat each other up.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So the person who stopped the fight.
Who stopped the fight in the middle of it or kicked the shit out of everybody in that fight from each side.
So that was a thing.
That was a thing. Like, no, I broke the fight,
That's a whole that's another layer to it.
That's another layer to it, yeah. But also the other thing is, like here I've noticed they say, I mean, again, maybe I'm generalizing, but they say once the fight starts, you should kick the shit out of the other person. Over there, if you punch someone once and the person goes down, you have to stop. Otherwise, you don't have balls.
Like you have to let them get back up?
Or you should stop the fight because you already hit them.
So one hit, that should be the end of the fight.
Exactly.
Like MMA.
Yeah, pretty much. As soon as you get a surrender, like if the person quits or if you punch the guy that goes down, you should stop hitting him because he's already down. What are you doing? Like,
I think in middle school, I think it's different in high school, and obviously once you get into being in your 20s or something. But in middle school, both kids are probably completely terrified and just being run by pure adrenaline and fear. And so at the end of the day, I don't think any kids in middle school actually want to go around and fight all the time.
No,
maybe
of course not.
Maybe a handful.
Yeah.
So if there's an opportunity for either one of them to stop the fight and someone gets in there and wants to stop the fight, the fight's going to stop. I never remember a middle school fight lasting longer than a minute.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah,
but I'm so happy we didn't have that layer to it. God, that would have been another thing for me to worry about. Like, hey, should this be the fight I stop? Is this the one I get in the middle?
He's got a knife. He's got a knife out. Should I do
man,
something?
I already got a foot in. I got to get in this thing now. Guys, enough.
But I remember, like, when I went to middle school, my dad was working in this city that was far away from the capital. So we moved to be with him for 2 years to finish this project he was doing. And then in that was like a little small city. It was like a small town. And everybody there disliked people from the capital. So when I was a student there, like I had to fight a few kids just based on that prejudice. Like, they come from the capital. They think they're better than us.
Yeah.
But then those fights were also like pretty like basic, like no like hard punches, or it was mostly like pushing or pulling and like slapping around. And
So it wasn't so much of an after school event like it is here?
Once a fight
was
starts, it starts right here. Like
Is it-
right
that's
now,
happening?
you start like punching and kicking.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, after school events take place too, by the
Right.
way. But then it's not like there's no like here. I notice it's very well structured. Like circle
Right.
outside. I'll see you outside. Or taking somebody out.
Yeah.
I learned that here. Over there, no. Like right now, I'm pissed off. I stop like slapping the shit out of you.
Right.
And then you slap the shit out of me back. And then some people like back there, this is back in the 80s and 90s, like karate and taekwondo were super popular.
Right.
So the kids who were going to taekwondo or karate class, they would do a back kick or a roundhouse or sweep, you know.
That would
Probably wildly miss.
Situation like Karate Kid was like, yeah.
I remember actually a fight about a fight being challenged and it's going to happen. It's going to happen after school, and there actually being a rain delay to the next day. I remember I remember us
Sorry,
checking
guys.
outside.
Looks like
I
we're not
mean,
going to be able to get this one in tonight.
Yeah.
Today.
I mean, there
we'll
was-
see you tomorrow.
couldn't do it inside. You get more in trouble if you're doing it in the school. Has to be outside. Can't do it outside. It's raining. Tomorrow. It's going to happen tomorrow. Oh, God. I
love it.
I'm surprised it didn't happen to me because that would have been me. That would have been me sick the whole night, playing it over and over in my head what I'm doing the next day.
You know, it was interesting. You were talking about how, like, there's kind of these unspoken rules, you know. One of the unspoken, like, I remember a kid got caught with brass knuckles.
Yeah.
And everybody was like, oh my fucking God. Like, that is so wrong. Like, they really got passionate about how, no. We'll fight.
Right.
We'll fight at the bike racks. We'll wrestle around. But if you bring a chain or any of that shit, it was a big deal.
Oh, I can imagine
that
that'd
kid
be a really
ended
big
up
deal.
becoming. How about this? That kid, the one that got caught with brass knuckles in high school, he ended up selling heroin.
Oh, wow.
And he
Shocker.
sold- how about this? He sold heroin to one of the kids that was in school. That kid ended up, after we graduated, overdosing and dying. And his brother was actually my manager when I worked in a restaurant. And that guy that sold him the heroin ended up going to jail, and he's I think he's still in jail. Like, he went to jail for a long time. That
yeah.
was the kid in middle school that got caught with brass
With the
knuckles.
brass
That
knuckles.
kid went on to be that guy.
Gotcha.
Wow.
There is no lesson in that story. None whatsoever. You got to reach for a lesson there. Was there any...
The lesson is, if a kid has brass knuckles, try to kill him immediately.
Immediately, so we can't get that far in
Right.
life.
Or put them in prison right away, yeah.
Did you have anybody when you got to high school? Was there anybody that ever went to jail or went away or was maybe killed by somebody else in some sort of way? Like, was it?
Well, in high school, the level of violence like increased significantly
Yeah.
among students. Like in middle school, yeah, you would see fights and all, but it wasn't that different from elementary school, at least to my experience. But high school, it was just a different game. Like that's where I saw brass knuckles, I saw knives, I saw chains.
What was the most violent thing you saw in a fight?
Okay, the most violent incident was there was this one guy. He had I don't know if maybe it can be diagnosed now as Tourette syndrome.
Okay.
And this other kid who was actually a good student, but I would say if I want to categorize him, he would be the bully because he used to make fun of his disability.
Okay.
Like saying for lack of a better word, you're retarded. Your whole family comes from the same bloodline, like cousins and brothers and sisters fucked each other, and that's why you're the offspring of these inbreds and all. So he kept saying that, and then that was a situation where he said, "I'll see you outside of the school." Like it was supposed to be a very big fight, and then in the outside he punched him and broke his one of his front teeth.
Who got punched?
The bully, the one who was making fun of the guy.
Got his tooth knocked out?
Got his one of his teeth knocked out.
Lovely.
And then his mouth was bleeding. But again, it was a cultural thing. We all disliked and blamed the attacker, like, oh, you punched his tooth out and you're an asshole, like, and he was like, yeah, he's been calling me a retard, and he was shaking from rage. And then that guy went and talked to some other guys, and then one day, like 10 bullies from another high school that was supposed to be Rough High School showed up to kick the Tourette syndrome kid ass. And then but we couldn't fight them, so we had like 5 kids in our class that they had judo and karate black belts. They went outside to fight, and all the rest of us, we went to the rooftop and just throw stones at them. And
Yeah, that's a good strategy. That's
yeah.
Lord of the Rings strategy.
Exactly.
It's like Hell's Deep.
Yeah, and busted one of their heads open, started bleeding, and then cops showed up, arrested all of us, and then they released us the next day. No charges were.
So what grade is it? How old were you?
This was when I was almost 17.
Yeah.
We don't have any
yeah.
stones over here. Right? I mean, you feel like I hear that stories like
Laying around the campus.
I mean, there's no stone throwing here. No.
No, and by the way, like over
Yeah,
there,
and we have a
yeah.
river in Los Angeles, and we still don't have stones.
Stones. Where the rocks were everywhere, construction sites, you could take some. And this is back in, like, now when I visited after 17 years, like roughly 3 years ago, now they have like fences around construction sites, and you have to wear a helmet. Like, things have become way more advanced.
Yeah.
But back then, no, like a construction site had no barriers or sort of like
Yeah.
hindrances to not let you get in. You could go in and take a shovel and come out and beat somebody up, you know. Yeah. Like
This is saying a lot about our childhoods. This topic is education. We've pretty much been talking about the
Fights,
fights.
fist fights,
exactly.
It's hilarious.
But
man.
we can jump off the fights here, because when you say like the construction sites were open, I remember when I had moved to Orlando. Orlando was in the middle of an explosion of growth and building and all these subdivisions. So there was a lot of tribal things going on in Orlando with that. But my original point is all these houses were being built at the same time. So you'd go down a street and there'd be 15 houses in the middle of being built. And it was like that was our playground. Like, we'd go in there, there's lumber and
Gotcha.
all sorts of shit. You'd go upstairs, like if the stairs were built, you could go upstairs. And so we'd play. My middle school would be we played all the time in these half-built houses with power tools out and
chains and
nails and shit, and there's all sorts of stuff going on.
brass knuckles.
Brass knuckles,
knuckles.
heroin.
Yeah.
It was real. It was real.
I remember. Well, the Halloween was a big deal in my schools.
Oh, yeah.
for sure, and that was always connected with. I felt like it was completely. There was a line drawn between Halloween experiences of each year. The first part was the fun at school. I don't know if you guys we had a parade. I'm assuming there was.
Well, we didn't have Halloween.
Yeah, so we didn't. Yeah.
No.
But
Was there what were the holidays that you would have that would be like, oh my God, we've been waiting all year for this. This is awesome.
Like, one is the Persian New Year. That's when you don't go to school for 2 weeks.
Oh shit, awesome.
So it's the beginning of the spring, and that was our like biggest holiday. But then there were sort of like political holidays or holidays established by the government, where like the anniversary of the Iranian Revolution.
I see.
But we never like enthusiastically look forward to it, because we would be off for a day only.
Right.
Yeah.
it was all
You know,
about
it's
the
funny,
days off.
Halloween,
Just
you
one
don't.
day off now.
We never even get off of Halloween.
No.
No,
I mean, the big thing was that where in my schools, it was that we had a parade during the day at school. We showed your parents that were whoever parents or family that would come. It reminded me of like a prison camp where you could look at your family through a chain link fence. While as they walk by, the family was allowed for a certain amount of time to just see your family member. That's what it was. We would just walk by a chain link fence in our costume as our family was up against the fence, and we would.
They couldn't come into school?
No, they would. This is what we do. We'd have either through the fence or on the other side of cones. Eventually went to cones.
Oh.
So, and I remember.
Imagine now with the phones and all that.
Oh yeah,
parents would fucking
now
lose
it's
their
like,
mind.
well, yeah, no, there's no way that's happening. So I remember though, we'd get to school in costume and then have to take off our costume because then we'd have to have a day of school.
Right.
And the second that the second that we would get out of school, we would go immediately start trick or treating, which is a difference between I'm noticing from the West Coast and the East Coast. Was that in the West Coast here, you wait till nighttime and then everyone starts trick or treating.
Well, in my town, both towns, we waited as well.
You waited too, yeah. For some reason, in my town, it was like you get out there right. You're going from right after school to the end, but right when it started getting dark was when all of a sudden the fun turned into that same junior high feeling of there's you could get into a fight tonight. This is definitely a night you could get into a fight. And sure enough, when I remember one year, I think it was when I was in 8th grade, there was one high school asshole who was stealing everybody's candy. That was going up to little kids, grabbing their bags, and just walking away with it. And then we had one kid that hung out with us. His name was John, and we called him Shecky. And he saw this happen to another kid, and he was the kind of guy that wasn't going to let that
that's
happen.
Unacceptable.
Went up to that guy, and they got into a fight, and started with him. And we were talking about the most violent thing you saw in a fight, and this is when I saw Shecky bite through this guy's fingers
Wow.
in his mouth.
Damn.
'Cause the guy had him in a headlock, and I remember him just chomping down. This guy screaming, and just seeing he looked like a vampire. I mean, it was perfect for the day. He looked like a vampire coming down with blood coming down his mouth and his face. He bit right through this guy's hands and his fingernails. He had holes in his fingernails. It was amazing.
Oh wow!
It was amazing. I mean, he was our hero. I mean, these kids were having all these.
Save the candies.
He saved the candy, and and everyone knew. His stock went up after that.
Yeah, I don't remember a lot of fighting on Halloween. I do remember a lot of. It was just a fucking free for all, eggs and all the whole nine.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah. That seemed like it was everywhere.
Blowing
here.
up mailboxes and
Well, getting back to education and
yes.
and in Iran, what was the grading system like? I mean, how was it? I mean, did you get F through A's like we did, or
No, 1 through 20.
1
Zero
through
1 through 20.
0 through 20.
wow, that's a
What's
big
high?
scale.
It's like
1 or 20?
if you score 20, that means you have an A plus.
Okay.
It's a perfect score.
Oh, I see.
To
Just
pass,
like how we had 100, right?
yeah, to pass
Well-
you need to have at least a 10.
Oh,
Oh, wow.
That would be like 50%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fail here.
Yeah.
Our system in the 80s and 90s, they don't. I don't think they use it anymore. Like my child does not have this system, but it is the fucking oddest. The whole A B C D, A through F system, and the numbers assigned to it are the weirdest. Like an A is 93. Like who's picking a C?
Is that what it is now? I didn't even
Or it
know
was.
that. Yeah.
A B was 85 to there, and then a C was 84. Like, why not
that-
the even numbers?
You're talking about now or
No, when I was in school. I have no idea what it is now.
really?
Like,
An A
like
was 93 when you were in school,
Yeah. that
and an A
it.
was how many for you?
A was, well, A plus is 20.
A plus was, but
It's
what
with just a normal A.
would be like an A?
Oh, I can't tell because it's I never we never had a system where you would assign a letter
Right.
as a grade.
So what was considered like, if 20 is A plus, what was considered, where did it start to go, I'm not quite at the top level?
Oh, yeah. If you got a grade between 18 and 20, you're still well, okay. If when we were in elementary school, pretty much everybody had a 20.
Right.
But in the middle school, between 18 to 20 was considered pretty good.
Yeah.
High school, anywhere between like 16 or 17 and up, you were doing okay. But I remember a lot of people, they had their grades like drastically going down, going to high school. Because at high school, the volume of the lessons increased significantly. And then mathematics and science got much harder.
Did you have like a gifted and talented type program where it was like the kids that had the higher grades went into a different
The
program?
20s. Did you all call each other the 20s?
No, there was a particular school that they would sort of like just grab the gift at once.
So there was the special education school, the regular school, and also a gifted
And then
school.
also the gifted school. But
But that should be how it should be.
You think so?
yeah. Like they were not hanging out with us. Like these were
Well,
geniuses. They would go to this one high
yeah.
school and
Actually, I take that back.
Matt
take that
Sewell,
back.
segregator.
No. When I thought about it, I was like, no, that's a stupid idea. Why would you need to have everyone to learn how to deal with one another?
well, there was
You're a good self-editor.
I do.
there was a high
That's all
school.
not going to be a part of this.
No, this is gone.
There was a high school like in the vicinity that we lived, and they had gifted students, but it was not only based on the grades they got in high school, but it was based on this thing called like there are these so like international competitions like math Olympiads and physics Olympiads, and these kids all like would participate every year in their age group, and they would get a medal, like a gold medal and silver medal. But then all of them, like if you could just, it's kind of funny because they all went to high school in Iran, but now when you read their names and you look them up, you find that 70% of them are now in MIT or Caltech. And,
Yeah.
Oh,
but
really?
these were like extremely smart kids. So they got this so-called Einstein visa. They came here. They went.
That sounds a lot different than the gifted program that was offered at my school.
Yeah.
I made my friend Alex.
Were you in gifted?
I was. I got put in at first grade.
Thank God. I might have had to leave if you weren't in gifted.
Yeah, no, I was in gifted and talented. It was called G&T,
Okay.
and I don't want to say it was ridiculous because I'm sure it definitely had some benefits, but for us, it meant picking getting out of class at a certain time where the teacher would come in. And I remember Mrs. Cohen. She would come in and say, "Jason, Alex, Francesca, it's time for gifted and talented," and they would all look at us while the three of us would stand up and walk out of the classroom and have that class time, that hour in class where it would be like we would just sit around and talk about smart things. I mean, that's what it felt like. It was like we were like, let's talk about the space program. Let's talk about recycling. Let's talk about things like that. And that would be it. And then and eventually
Let's
we'd get
talk about earthquakes and the internet.
Now you see where that came from. And so now we had, eventually she'd be like, you need to do a project. We need to do something. So I remember that whole first year was like, let's, one of us came up with the idea was let's have a recycling competition for all our classes. Mm-hmm. We get the cans and bottles. People bring in their recyclables. We weigh it or see how much each classroom has. The winner gets a pizza party at the end of the pretty straightforward. But we were taking the bottles and cans and bringing them to the recycling center and getting the money for them. And we made hundreds of dollars.
Oh my God. Now that is truly gifted and talented.
Yes, like that was what it was. It was just beating, taking from the other kids. But the second time around we started, it was in second grade, we were allowed to do some sort of like space program thing. My friend and I, Alex, we decided to do rocketry and show what it's like for a rocket to lift off. And we, build a model rocket. It's a kind of the hobby stores. You could get those little gunpowder engines that stick in. You have one, right? You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, shoots up, comes out down in a parachute.
In a parachute, yeah.
We had enough money from these recycling things to build the most expensive one to show to the school, and that was
To finance your science project.
exactly.
Yeah.
We built the space shuttle, which was basically like, it was 2 rockets on the sides and the middle one. It was all one big giant thing. That thing was like, it was huge.
Was it? Yeah, because remember some of those things would be like 6 feet high.
Yeah, these were it was massive.
Yeah.
It was like the biggest engine. It had the most gunpowder. I don't even know if it was gunpowder, but whatever it was. It looked like gunpowder. It would shoot off like it was. We were going to shoot it off in front of the whole school. And the day came to do that, and the gifted and talented teacher was out sick, right? So obviously it was going to be rescheduled. But she didn't tell anybody about this thing. This was going to happen, but I don't know exactly what happened. But we made the decision, my friend and I, in second grade, this needs to happen still. We are going...
So, wait a minute. You're in second grade?
Second grade.
Oh my
we are shooting this rocket off because it was supposed to happen today, so we know what to do. So we told... And for some reason, we told all the teachers, this is the time it's happening. We told the principal, they made the announcement.
Oh my.
And the entire school came out into the field to watch us launch a rocket without our teacher. Something we had not yet done. And we...
Second grade?
Second grade.
You gotta be fucking kidding me.
We put it together. We had it on the launch pad. I think we had done test flights or maybe one or two that worked. I don't know. Maybe it was with other smaller rockets. We knew what we were doing. So we had no worries about it not working out. We knew it was going to be great. And we have the thing going. We hit the button for launch. The countdown. We hit the button. Nothing happens.
Oh, the dud.
Oh, wow.
Launch is scrubbed.
We check it out. We go back. They count down again. Nothing happens. And I remember it as clear as day. They started counting down the crowd and going like this: 3, 2, 1, malfunction. That's what everyone kept saying over and over again. We're like, oh God, this isn't happening. Like, it was such this horrible feeling. Like, everyone, the entire school is coming out. One last try. They count down. I hit it. That thing launches, but never gets off the launch pad. For some reason, it was stuck.
Oh,
I think later
man.
we determined that we put some sort of tape around something that stuck it. That thing knocked on its side,
Oh no.
went about 2 feet in the grass, and burst into flames
Oh, wow.
in front of the whole school. And it was incredible. And of course, the kids are going nuts. I think it's the greatest thing they ever saw in their
Later,
life.
they're like,
Yes.
yeah, Shomer won that fight. You remember the kid that didn't launch the rocket?
The Rockets, yeah. He won that fight.
He
Yeah.
won the fight.
The irony was that this was about a month after the Challenger explosion.
Oh no.
So, I mean, like...
That's right. That was second.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
we
we're
were at
in
the
second
same
grade.
age.
Yeah. So,
Jesus
we have a
Christ.
burning space shuttle in the field.
Just
in front
discouraging
of all
all
the-
students, too.
Yeah.
Did you hear about the Challenger space shuttle accident?
Have you got
when
that
you were-
news yet?
No, we didn't get that news, yeah.
I mean, when it happened, you
Yeah.
really didn't get that then.
No.
It
What year was that?
It was 86, yeah.
Yeah, no, not at all.
It was a monster huge fucking deal in America.
Okay.
Like, it was a big fucking deal.
Because it was a teacher in the crew that had, it was all astronauts and an actual school
And this is the
teacher.
first time a civilian was going into space.
Oh, wow.
A non-astronaut, non-military person. They had a huge, a giant nationwide search for a teacher. They settled on this woman, Krista McAuliffe, who, aside from being a teacher, she was a woman. So it was like this multi-layered, big fucking deal. And that is one of those things in America where you remember where you were when that happened.
Got it. Like, kind of like 9/11.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
there's a handful of those things.
And most of the kids our age, and I'm sure we're watching it live
Yes.
in school.
So here's the scenario. There's a teacher on there, very important to the education system in America. They pipe the launch into just about every classroom you can imagine, and they launch. The shuttle goes up, and at this point, the shuttle going off had become pretty routine. Like, it was like they're up to number. It was like STS 30 or something. I don't know. They had done quite a few. It was no surprises. And this fucking thing, 31 seconds into the flight, explodes.
It blew up. Oh,
In
wow.
front of the whole country, watching all those children. And imagine being a teacher and you have to turn around to your second grade class and explain to them what the hell
What
just
just happened? Wow.
Not only that, the family is sitting there in the bleachers in the stands, and that happens, and it was a pretty seminal moment in American history. It was a big fucking.
Oh yeah, my second grade teacher, I remember very clearly, absolutely jumping the gun on explaining to us what just happened. She happened to get it right, but I mean that thing had just blown up. There was so much confusion in our class and what's going on. Even on TV, it was all right. It was still confusion. It really, I mean, it was, looking back, like, oh, clearly that thing just blew up. But it really was, something was wrong, and we heard the teachers talking. And my second grade teacher walked over to the TV. This thing is still not even coming down yet. I mean, this thing's still going up in pieces and then about to come down. She turns off the TV and goes, "Boys, girls, remember we were talking about the teacher in space, the Kristen McAuliffe? She just died."
Oh man.
And all the astronauts with her just died.
No.
So we're going to talk about this. We're going to keep talking about this and understand what happened, but they have just died. And said it about several times. We were all just like, what? Like, no one was thinking that at the moment.
No.
Like, we just thought it was just something was wrong with the launch, not they're all now dead. But she made that call. She was like, she might have pronounced them dead before anybody else on Earth pronounced them dead.
Wow.
Man, yeah.
So now let's ask you this: like, what is there a moment you remember from your school years that, your childhood, where everyone knows that was the day that blank happened?
Right.
Yeah. I don't think it was like just like a one event, but I remember when I was growing up. Iran and Iraq went to a war.
Right.
So most of the sort of like...
What year was this?
It's the war started in the 1980, and I was a student. I started first grade and I think it was roughly around 1982. So, and the war lasted for 8 years. So meaning by the time I finished sixth grade, the war was over. But most of the incidents or the topics we discussed were amongst the things such as, they launched a missile and they hit this city and 100 people died, or they launched another missile at this city. So it wasn't just like a one event, but I remember at one point they got really good at launching missiles, and they were like launching it at the Capitol. And those were like the days that we still remember. Like, oh, you remember that those 3 months that they were launching missiles back to it? It was like, oh yeah, we remember. So those 3 months that they got really good at it and they started launching those
How
missiles.
close did it get to the school?
Oh, they hit some schools, but not our school.
Well, yeah.
And it was a time that actually that 3 month segment where they were launching the maximum number of missiles was when my parents and my family, we moved to this other city to be with my dad.
So you got out.
So we were not in that city, but
Right.
the whole country was shocked about this. And then that was one event. But another event that sort of stayed with all of us was there was this one major city that got invaded. And then after 6 months, the Iranian special forces, they took it back. So we were always like, oh yeah, like they took it back. Like that was also another sort of like significant moment in our lives. But that was like a significant, like taking that city back was like huge.
What was the city?
It was called, it's hard to pronounce in English, it's called Khorramshahr. Yeah, but that operation that led to the taking to the sort of like re-invasion of the city was like, wow, did you see what we did? And
did you have any like drills, or like, how like we had like fire drills at school? Did you have like incoming missile drills?
Yeah, unfortunately, not really. They just taught us how to like find the shelter in the basement and just run to the shelter and just follow each other from the right side.
Wait a minute. So so the message was, if you hear the alarm, everybody get up and run to the basement.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
But
Holy
how to run
shit.
to the basement in a way that we don't like bump into each other. Like everybody comes to this wall and just follow this wall down.
Okay.
And how big was the basement? Did it fit every student in there?
Yeah, it did.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Do you remember, I remember in my elementary school, and I think my middle school, there's areas of the school that were fallout shelters. They'd have a little,
Yeah.
they'd have a thing on the wall that, it was kind of a leftover from the Cold War,
No. We had an old room downstairs that had a cigarette machine. That was the closest to a fallout shelter we had in my school. There was no reason for fallout shelters in my school.
Yeah, mine neither.
But you did?
Obviously.
But yours had it?
Yeah, the main cafeteria was considered a fallout shelter, and they had a big fucking sign on there with the radiation thing on there.
Oh, so it was actually for like a nuclear explosion.
Yeah, so if
Interesting.
something nuclear was going to happen in America, in Homer, New York,
Right.
then everybody's going to go to the cafeteria.
No, we had no protection. We never even talked to the closest to any kind of
They
drill
probably- well.
we had was fire drills, where all we were told was that the bell's going off, you walk outside, you walk back inside, and that was it. There was no other anything. And luckily, there was no nuclear bombs or tornadoes.
Well, they never in my school never said we never practiced any sort of run to the fallout shelter drill. I just remember the signs being there.
Yeah. Did you have PE? Like, did you have a gym class?
Yeah, but it was like it was much smaller than like PE sort of like curriculums here in the States. Like here, each school has its own like basketball field, like basketball court, football, soccer, wrestling. Over there, no, there was just like a small yard where you would play soccer. That's it.
So was it kind of more like a recess, sort of like an open play?
Yeah,
thing?
yeah.
I mean, you could have an entire episode on PE in America.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Shit that went down in PE.
Oh, God. I mean, why? Yeah, why wait? It's PE. It's school, right? So gym class was more of a...
It was just like as you mentioned, it was just a recess.
Recess.
Yeah.
Like here, I've noticed people like they go take like especially in high school. I don't know about middle school here, but they like go running or like athletics. It's like
Well, I mean, there's a standardized requirements every year.
presidential fitness
The
test.
presidential fitness test. My God, that
Which
was the worst.
Gotta
thing.
be at some level some sort of bullshit. It's just something we're gonna make a test up to make sure
Yeah.
that these damn kids get off their ass.
Well, I mean, you had basically what it was that you had to do you got tested 1/4 of the year every year to make sure that you're able to meet a certain physical requirement. It felt like you had to be able to do at least a certain amount of push-ups, a certain amount of sit-ups.
This has got to be some sort of holdover from the 50s and 60s
Right.
and the draft and stuff because, you know, what the test was so.
The mile. You had to run a mile.
oh, okay.
It's basically the same test you'd see when you're trying to get into the military. You know, it's
Yeah.
like you climb a rope, get timed. How many chin-ups can you do?
Right.
How many sit-ups?
Was
How
it
many-
And
difficult or was
well,
it
the answer to
manageable?
the answer to my question the answer to all those questions was 0, 2, 1, 0, 18 minutes for me.
Okay.
That's how bad I was at the bottom of the list.
But here's the
okay.
thing: I don't remember anyone really keeping score amongst one another
No.
and giving a shit if anyone passed or failed. It was just like,
no,
we got to do
well,
this.
I mean, there's always that one gym teacher that cared. He wanted good, like as if it was going to boost his career.
Right.
Oh man,
Like in our PE class, like we had a PE class once a week. It was just like a 2.5 hour class where this sort of like PE instructor would come and make us like run around and do push-ups and pull-ups, and then we would play soccer.
yeah.
Or there were these other games, but I remember like at one point they expected us to be able to do 10 pull-ups. And then the 10 pull-ups was like they were considered very important. Like you have to be. And I remember I could do 7, and
That's
I was
fucking hard.
I was much better than.
What
all
happens
the
if you
rest of
can't
the-
do 10?
Oh no, it's
And they put you in the military.
It affects your grade. It affects your grade.
Oh, this is great.
So, but then there was this. There were only 2 kids in our classroom who could do 10.
Right.
But everybody else was somewhere between 5. And
Those two are at MIT now.
Yeah.
I,
Well, one of them later on became a karate champ in Asia.
no kidding.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
look at that. Yeah, we had. I think both in middle school and in high school, we had that one teacher that acted as if it was the most important thing in the world. I remember in junior high junior high was when I had the most issues when it came to gym class. I was definitely on the chubbier side of things. I mean, I had gone from from fattish in middle school. I mean, in grade school to kind of chubby in high school, but. It was
To literally the skinniest guy I know out of all my friends.
well, it just took
besides Michael.
It just takes age, right? But oh fuck, yeah, Mr. Hickey in my junior high, he was that teacher that like would never be able to teach today the way he ran things, the way he talked to people. I'll never forget that guy. I was one of the first ones in my middle school. I was in 7th grade to get an earring. Right, I really wanted to get an earring, and that was something that I thought, and it was all about stock. My stock's gonna go up. I'm gonna get this earring. It's gonna be great. I wanted this hoop earring, and that's what I wanted. And then my mom would not let me go to the fucking jeweler to get because she thought that I was gonna get AIDS by getting.
Oh my God, for real?
Oh, she thought I was gonna get AIDS by getting an earring at the jeweler. Because obviously you need to. The only safe possible way to get your ears pierced is at the pediatrician. To go there, and when you're a guy going to the pediatrician in 7th grade back then, there are not too many guy earring options for them to put in your ear. Oh, no. So the closest thing I could get was this gold ball. I had a gold ball, little tiny gold ball in my ear. One, and that was the one that had to stay in for whatever 6 weeks or whatever it was where you cleaned it before, where the hole actually stays, and you could then put in. And then I had the hoop ready. I had the diamond stud ready. I had a little J and a fucking lightning bolt ready. All the stuff that was going to turn me into the most popular kid in the world. And I walked in. You know what? I didn't care about the gold balls. Like I still got my ears. It was about the piercing, not about what was in my ear. And first, second period, I remember kids were like, "Oh, dude, you got your ears pierced. Oh my God, look at that. Look what Jason got his ears pierced." I get to gym class. I get undressed. You know, we're in the locker room getting ready for gym class, which was always a tough thing anyway, getting changed in front of everybody. But that's something else. And but I was
the first time I saw pubic hair was in gym. It freaked me the hell out. Anyway, go ahead.
So there you go. And mine was a Down syndrome man in my elementary school.
Oh, no.
Going to the bathroom. I'm getting dressed, and Mr. Hickey walks in. He sits down with his coffee, getting ready for us to start gym class. He goes, "Shomer, what the fuck you got in your ear?" I'm like, "Oh, it's an earring. I got my ear pierced." "Really? What are you, a fucking faggot?"
Oh my God.
Oh,
That's what he
man.
says in front of the entire class. That's what he said to me in front of the entire class. And I remember that was it. Any type of stock going up, any popularity, any good feelings of any kind that I've had because I took the step and this bold step to get my ear pierced before anybody else really did.
Again, this would totally be directly on the news
CNN.
that afternoon.
CNN.
National
CNN.
news.
National news.
See this video of this
No.
PE teacher
No.
using an epithet.
Right. Unbelievable.
And not only that, he fucked you like bad. Like you are now all the other kids. Oh my God, that's terrible.
It was right. And then all of a sudden,
If I was a parent, I'd be like, I'd put aside the epithet. I'd be like, what the hell are you doing?
well, that's probably different. That was another difference, was that there was no way in hell I'm telling my parents that happened. Today, I'm sure kids would probably say,
Maybe.
that would have been on
Right.
that would have been on video. That would have been
CNN.
recorded.
Yes.
That would have been a video. It'd be on
Totally.
CNN.
Yeah.
But
Totally.
this was not.
Anderson Cooper, Don Lemon.
Yeah. This
Jake
instead
Tapper.
melted into my ongoing stresses and anxieties in school and went into that. And now the focus became with, well, look, it's a gold ball. Nothing else. It's a girl's earring. And now it turned into a girl's earring. And then I had to wait 6 weeks for this with this girl earring in my faggot ear in gym class.
Oh, wow.
Which was horrible. And like, look, I mean, obviously that was a horrible thing to say and a horrible thing to hear, but that's how it was. That was a perfect example of what gym class was throughout school.
Absolutely.
There was nothing good about gym class.
Well, if I just like translate the type of like statements that were being made by our PE teacher, it would go from a full range of like, fat shaming and homophobia. It's
Right.
just
Yeah.
that was
Those are the two-
normal.
those
Like that's
two
how
big
you speak
things.
to kids. Like, hey, like don't be a fat fuck. Start running around. Like, you guys are like a bunch of fat fucks. Like that was like a very normal thing to say.
Well, that's universal
Yeah.
then.
Yeah.
Because that
Yeah,
was,
it was.
that's heard everywhere.
Well, I
There's-
mean, right now they still say fat to kids back there, but homophobia is. I mean, I wouldn't say like homophobia, but they wouldn't directly like say like any kind of epithets. But
Even back, when was it, 90, like, it was 95 when I was a junior, and then 96.
So I'm a year ahead of you.
You're ahead. There were definitely a couple openly gay kids then, and they were,
Right.
they
In
were,
the theater department.
they were, but they were also popular. They were
Oh,
the
yeah,
popular
for sure.
kids. They
For sure.
and they had all the popular hot girls that always hung around them,
Yeah.
and that like really brought them up. And that for some reason, well, not for some reason, I understand it, but like that,
Safe.
yeah, safe, and made him popular across the school, which was great. Especially that it was this many years ago, and now it's
Right.
for sure accepted.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure not. Did you ever have any controversial student-teacher relationships? You know how you see in this country where there's teachers that have slept with students that have been arrested for it, or any kind of scandals like that growing up?
Well, there was one on the news when I was a teenager, but there was like this one teacher in my high school that we were like, hey, like there was just an unofficial rule that you should not be alone with him.
Oh, with him.
With
Okay.
him, yeah, because he may like attempt to like molest you or
Jesus Christ.
so. But it was like nobody talked about it.
Right.
Really. There was just like,
But no, like-
it was commonly understood. You stay away from this guy.
But no, like young, attractive female teacher sleeping with the 15-year-old track.
Oh no,
track star
that's
kid.
that's predominantly like just.
That's an American thing.
That's
it's
an American thing. That's an American crazy thing. No doubt.
And also like I remember past elementary school, the guys would only have like male teachers.
Oh yeah.
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 I remember going to college after high school.
Oh, that was rampant.
And that was fun. Yeah, for some reason that's okay. Because everybody's
18.
Everyone's over 18.
Yeah.
But I didn't even think about it. I remember when I got to college, I made out with my Spanish
TA.
sub professor. She was the teacher, but she was not. It wasn't like a big, huge class. It was like one of the smaller classes, and thinking like, this is huge. Huge. Oh my God. Like it was like one of those moments where it was like, what's gonna happen? Do I tell my parents? Like
Oh my God, that's
like
funny.
it was and then
How old are you?
I was in college first year. It was probably 18, 19,
18?
and it was and then
And what is she at most? 24?
right, yeah. She was like a few years older. I didn't realize that either.
That's why that's where they come back to the conclusion that no one is really an adult until they're 25.
Yes. So that was a big disappointment to find out that people were doing way more than making out with their teachers in college.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But
I remember just a megawatt hot intern coming in to high school. You'd have a teacher's assistant would be an intern from the local college, and it was like, what?
well, did you have any crushes on not interns, but how about just regular teachers? Were there any, well, first of all, were there any female teachers?
No, we
no,
didn't
all
have
males.
anything with all male teachers.
All right. Well, did you have any attractions to the male teachers?
Whoa, no.
Okay.
Not that I remember. But I remember one time there was this one chemistry teacher who was teaching like female students privately, and I remember back then it was kind of a big deal, like because like people were very conservative, but because he was a very good teacher, they would let him teach like the girls, and I heard like one of the girls fell in love with him because he was considered like very good looking and charismatic, but in retrospect he was just a douchebag.
I had crushes on a couple teachers. I think it was none of that, not to that. There was like only like the ones that were like younger, and I could tell that were not.
only that TA or not TA or intern. That was the only one
Yeah,
that we were all like,
but we never had anything happen. Like I never heard of any stories in my school of any, actual relationships. I mean, I remember my English teacher in high school being really cute and knowing she was cute. This has nothing to do with attraction. My English teacher in middle school had a speech impediment. So this is a complete side note, but I'm not making fun of the guy, but it was an interesting
And he's teaching
person to be
English.
teaching me the vocabulary and the proper way to say things, and he couldn't say them. And of course, when you're in middle school, it's you
what a
can't
nightmare.
stop laughing in class because it's just like nothing's sounding right. And oh gosh.
That's like me teaching pronunciation to kids.
Well, on that note, I think we've hit a good stopping point here. Right?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm down.
That was good. Thank you, Shar.
No, thank you
That
so
was a good
much.
time.
Thanks for
Matt,
having me.
that was
Yeah,
awesome.
Thank you.
Of course.
And yeah, thanks for joining us.
I want more out of you, Jay Shomer.
That's all I got.
I want the
That's all I
most
got.
presentational conclusion to a podcast episode that
Can
you
we
can
just
muster.
sing goodbye?
3-part harmony. All right, I'm
All
stopped.
right.
All right.